Now then, do you remember this chap? If you do, then like me, you're of a certain age. But let me show you something from this series that you probably haven't seen before. So, Ulysses 31. I believe originally a French series, which we then got a dub of here in the UK. And one I loved as a kid very much. And it's one of those things that is on my website as one of my sort of 80s cartoon memories. And I did set myself a sort of personal goal of trying to acquire some examples of collectibles from those shows on my site. And when I went to the Doncaster Toy Fair at the end of last year, I did not anticipate finding anything Ulysses related that was going to be even vaguely affordable. Not that what I got was cheap, but there was a lot of money you could spend on Ulysses stuff. Now, this I've had for quite a while, and I guess this in and of itself now is a collectible, because this is the complete series of Ulysses. I don't know if you remember Jetix. I think it was like a Toonami sort of offshoot. Fox Kids there as well involved in it, but obviously this was quite it's a DVD for starters. But I do remember, I've literally just had the thought as I was thinking about the DVD now, that there were VHS tapes released of the series. And I remember them being a sort of kind of beigey, creamy sort of colour, but quite ethereal looking, but quite distinctive at the same time, even though they were quite sort of low key. So that was sort of one of the memories that came back to me. So you've got all these sort of various episode titles there, and it's 31st century. Ulysses has angered the god Zeus by killing the Cyclops, and now the deity seeks a terrible revenge on him and his crew. Now lost and alone with all but his son, a mysterious alien, and a robot called No-No, Ulysses must cross the universe to find the kingdom of Hades. Then and only then can he return home. Ulysses 31 is a fantastic, iconic hit series from the 1980s, presented here in its entirety for the first time. It reckons 627 minutes of runtime, over 10 hours. Nice. I haven't actually, I must confess, I have not watched the full series for a long, long time. But it was very, very nicely done, and I knew a little bit about the sort of Greek sort of mythology and that sort of stuff, and a lot of it is in here, but it's in here in a science fiction form and a cartoon form, which makes it very, very accessible to kids. So clever on someone's part, very, very clever. Now, when I went to Doncaster at the end of 2023, yep, that was last year, I found this, and I had not intended to find anything Ulysses related, as I said. Certainly not that was affordable, because when this series first came out, Poppy released a range of Ulysses ships, and there are figures and all that sort of good stuff. I'm saying it was Poppy, I hope I'm right about that. I should have made a note. But basically, you will still find them, but they are hundreds of pounds each. They are not cheap. You can find one boxed, good luck to you. But I've seen a few battered examples on eBay, and they still go for incredible prices, as do the figures. Finding a figure from that era is doable, but it's very, very expensive. However, this was relatively cheap. It's arguably much better than those figures were, because it's more modern and it's bigger. Now this is, I believe, from 2009. It's a High Dreams figure, or High Dream figure, and the first edition of it was from 2003. So this is in and of itself 15 years old now. So it's not young by any stretch of the imagination. And I think this was probably released in France and Japan, which makes sense given the origins of the series. But as you can see, it's very, very nicely packaged, very sort of true to the animation of the show. I haven't unboxed this. I'm going to now, because it's already been opened, because the gentleman who sold it to me, he was a very, very nice guy, but he assured me that his energy shield was inside it, and the only way he could possibly assure me of that is if he'd already been into the box, which he has been. But that's fair enough. I understand why he would do that. Neither of us knew anything about this figure, I don't think. I think he I'll show you the base of it there. I don't think either of us knew the company particularly. I certainly didn't. Nor had I ever seen an example of this. So, on the basis that I might never see one again, and that pretty much everyone there of my era would have been eyeing it up, I thought, if I don't go for it, I'm just never going to see one again, and I'm certainly never going to own one. So, let's have a look. So, there we are. Okay, so there's nothing else in the box that I can see. But I mean, it's a really good mould. I mean, that is there's no two ways about it. That is categorically Ulysses from Ulysses 31. Anyone who sees that, who knows the series, is going to acknowledge that in 2 seconds flat. So what I've got there is it's quite hard for you to see that, I think, but it is actually a blade for the sword. You might recall he had a sort of laser sword, and this is what he was talking about. So his shield is here. A little bit, actually it's not loose, there is a little bit of sellotape there that's holding it, but he's obviously got his energy shield there. So his weapon here is both a sword from that point going up, but it could also form a shield, which I imagine probably goes into the tip there, and so it was both offensive and defensive. No, in fact I'm completely wrong about that. That's nonsense. This was more like in Star Wars Rebels, Ezra initially had that lightsaber that was both the lightsaber and a gun. It's kind of like that. So actually his shield goes on there. As I say, it's been a while since I watched the series, but yeah, that makes perfect sense. So he could block with his left, shoot and slash with his right, basically. But as you can see, it's nice detailing on his belt. The fists are pretty decent as well. I don't think it's articulated particularly. I think it's probably limited to his one sort of hero pose. But he's got a sort of kind of material cape that's not solid, that's movable, which I think is quite a nice touch. It almost reminds me of the original Clone Wars. It's almost got that sort of animation style feel to it somehow. You could almost see Obi-Wan Kenobi done in this sort of style, you know what I mean? But I just think that's a really, really sort of lovely figure for display purposes, and I'm not sure that I've got anywhere to put him at the moment, admittedly, but I do think that is pretty cool, and there are some quite eye-watering prices for it on eBay, although that being said, there are very, very few of them around, and in fact a lot of them are the edition before this one, so I don't really know what this is worth, but I suspect it's probably worth more than I paid for it. Which is always nice, but the other thing I didn't mention actually about the box is that you'll see that it omits the S on the end, because in France it's just Ulysses, it's not Ulysses, because that's the anglicised version of Ulysses, which obviously is the DVD that we got, and the series that we got, but fair dues, that does seem to be complete. And for the most part in its original packaging. So very, very happy to have had that. And of course, as I was looking for pricing for that online, I then came across this, which is rather lovely. And this is from the, more sort of from the time of the show itself. And basically, it is the story of the show using not cells, but using images from the cartoon, which is nice. So we've got a little interesting timestamp there to Sarah Jane, Merry Christmas 1986. So that immediately gives you a rather nice personal sort of touch to it, so that you know what sort of year it was from. So I guess this was someone's Christmas present, which is lovely, and it's still in very, very good condition. Ulysses in the 31st century. ISBN number there as well, for reference. Translated by Patricia Raycart in association with First Edition. So that suggests that this was maybe a French edition, Deke, TMS, 1981, licensed by BBC Enterprises Limited. English translation, Ward Lock. first published in Great Britain. So this book was obviously British, but it's obviously been taken from an edition from somewhere else. But it's not really saying who first did it, which is interesting. Wardlock Limited, London. So Ulysses, captain of the spaceship Odyssey, was preparing to make his way back home to Earth, having accomplished his mission on the Trojan space base. Sadly, he said goodbye to Priam, the Trojan leader. Yeah, so there we are. So, you know, it does. I mean, it's really, really long. I mean, it wasn't really sort of apparent, obviously, on eBay initially just how long it was going to be. But there's a lot, you know, there's a lot of detail. So I'm guessing that all 26 episodes are in some way represented here, I would imagine. Because the sort of the closing suggests that it was kind of, you know, that was the end of the story, or that part of the story. It's a little bit loose just at the back, but I think all the pages are there. I think it's just the spine that's struggling a little bit. But that's just the sort of the final page there with the Odyssey on it. So it's a rather lovely little thing to have. And it was only well, I suppose £3.95 at the time would have been quite a lot. But it's a nice hardback presentation. Lots and lots of illustration, and just not something, again, I'd ever seen before. But it was a little piece of Ulysses that was actually relatively affordable, you know, which was nice. So it's of its time, inevitably, as all these sorts of things are, of course. But I think there's still a lot of love for Ulysses. You know, people love the theme tune, and in fact, there was I can't remember what the band was now, but there was a music video which seemed to be harkening back to the style of Ulysses at one point, which made me smile at the time. I don't know if it was Blue, because there were blue-skinned aliens in Ulysses. I'm just wondering if that was a linkage there, but I could be completely wrong, and I stand to be corrected in the comments on that one. But yeah, I mean, you know, you're just not going to find anything Ulysses related that is not very expensive, unless you're very, very lucky. I don't even know what the DVD set goes for, but you know, I imagine, I don't know if you could probably find it on streaming and stuff, I guess, these days fairly easily. Although I don't know how many of the kids shows really tend to make it into there, because, you know, I guess there are, I don't know whether or not there's demand for these slightly more obscure ones, but it's not obscure for me. It's not obscure from my point of view. Science fiction, Greek mythology, combined in an animated form with cool music, yes please. But I would love to own some of the ships. The ships would be awesome, but they are also awesomely expensive. And I am going to have a little look though at some other at another Poppy ship very shortly after I finish with this one. So do like and subscribe as ever, and I'll see you for the next one. Cheers for now.